My name is Olivia, I'm 34, and I discovered my fiancé was cheating on me with my own sister just weeks after he proposed. Before I tell you how I exposed them both in a way that left them speechless and almost ruined his career, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. The words hung in the air of our apartment, thick and suffocating. I think we need a break. James wouldn't look at me. His eyes were fixed on a spot on the wall, somewhere over my shoulder, as if the floral print wallpaper was suddenly the most fascinating thing in the world. He spoke in a low, rehearsed monotone, the kind of voice someone uses when they're trying to sound thoughtful and deep but just come across as hollow. It's just, he sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, I feel like you haven't been here lately, Liv. You're always tired, always working. It's like we're living separate lives under the same roof. I don't feel like I'm a priority anymore. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't hurl the decorative pillow at his head, even though every fiber of my being wanted to. A strange, cold clarity washed over me, a chilling wave that pushed down the hot surge of panic. It felt like the world went into slow motion. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, the frantic beating of my own heart. But on the outside, I was perfectly still. I just nodded, a single, sharp dip of my chin. The silence that followed was more damning than any argument. He seemed surprised, maybe even a little disappointed by my lack of a reaction. He probably expected a scene, tears, begging. It would have fed his narrative, the one where he was the reluctant, long-suffering partner forced to make a hard choice. My quiet compliance seemed to unnerve him. So, that's it? He asked, a flicker of irritation in his voice. You're not even going to fight for us? You've already made your decision, James, I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the chaos inside me. There's nothing to fight for. He mumbled something about needing some space, grabbed his jacket and keys from the bowl by the door, and walked out. The click of the lock was deafening. I was left alone in the quiet wreckage of what I thought was my life. The moment the door closed, I didn't collapse. I walked over to my laptop, my movements robotic but deliberate. I already knew. I didn't have all the details, but a woman knows when the ground has shifted beneath her. The distance he felt wasn't mine. It was his. And I had a sickening, gut-twisting certainty about where he was closing that distance. To understand why his betrayal felt like a building collapsing on top of me, you have to understand this wasn't our first storm. We met at work. I was a product development lead, respected for my work and my dedication. James was the brilliant, charming new guy, transferred from the Chicago branch. He was magnetic, quick with a joke, and had a smile that could disarm a battalion. Against my better judgment and my own rules about office romance, I fell for him, hard and fast. Our first 3 months were a whirlwind of happiness. Then, the first crack appeared. My mother, Eleanor, who lived alone since her messy divorce from my father, had a bad fall and broke her wrist. I had to cancel a dinner with his visiting college friends to take her to the emergency room and get her settled. I thought he'd understand. Instead, he stewed in silence all night. The next day, in the office break room, he confronted me. I just don't get it, Olivia, he said, his voice loud enough for several colleagues to hear. It was a sprained wrist, not open heart surgery. My friends were in town for one night. I guess I know where I stand now, somewhere below your mother's minor inconvenience. The humiliation was a physical sensation, a hot flush crawling up my neck. My best friend and colleague, Maya, who was getting coffee, shot him a look that could curdle milk. She pulled me aside later. A man who resents you for caring for your family is showing you exactly who he is, she warned. That's not a red flag, Liv, that's a whole parade. I knew she was right. I ended it. The breakup was messy, and working in the same building was a nightmare. But for 4 months, I poured myself into my work. I got a promotion to senior lead, and my boss, David, praised my leadership on a critical project. I was healing. I was moving on. Then came the coffee shop coincidence. He was there, looking like a lost puppy. He apologized profusely. He said something that sounded so convincing at the time. "I've been going to therapy, Liv," he'd said, stirring his latte. "I'm learning about my attachment issues, my fear of not being the center of someone's world." It was my insecurity talking, not me. "I was an idiot to let you go." He said all the right things. He used the right jargon. He seemed so sincere. And I, a woman who wanted to believe in second chances, who ached for the beautiful future we had planned, I let him back in. Maya was furious. "People don't change that fast," she texted me after I told her. "He just learned a new script." My father, William, was more reserved but equally skeptical. "Just be careful, honey," he'd said over the phone. "A leopard doesn't change its spots overnight." But I was sure they were wrong. This time, it felt different. It felt real. He was patient, respectful of my time, and celebrated my successes. A year later, on a weekend trip to a charming coastal town, he proposed. The ring was perfect, the moment was perfect. I said yes without hesitation. The joy was so overwhelming it felt like vindication. I became obsessed with building the perfect life for us. That's when I made my secret sacrifice. For years, I'd been developing a business plan on the side, a passion project I called Artisan Ledger. It was a financial management platform for independent artists and creators, helping them navigate contracts, royalties, and taxes. It was my baby. An angel investor had seen my proposal and was ready to talk seed money. It was the dream. I had the call with him, my heart pounding with excitement, but when the time came to commit, I hesitated. I looked at the picture of me and James on my desk. I thought about the life we were building. And I said no. I told the investor I needed to put it on hold. I told myself it wasn't the right time. Instead, I took on every extra project, every late night at the office, working myself to the bone. My plan was to save up a massive down payment and surprise James with our dream house, a beautiful white colonial with a wraparound porch he'd once pointed out, saying, "Can you imagine us growing old there?" I never told him why I was working so hard. I just let him believe I was chasing a bigger salary. I was building a foundation for our future, brick by painful, exhausting brick. That foundation began to crack the day my sister came home. Rebecca, younger than me by 8 years, had just finished her master's degree in London. She came back polished, beautiful, and with an energy that seemed to suck all the air out of a room. Since our parents' divorce, she'd legally taken our mother's maiden name, partly to honor our mom and partly, I always suspected, to carve out an identity separate from my father and me. There was always a subtle current of competition from her. I was the responsible, academic one, she was the free-spirited, artistic one. Growing up, it felt like she was always nipping at my heels, dating the boy I had a crush on, suddenly deciding to excel in a subject I was known for. I remember her sobbing once in high school because I won a scholarship she wanted. "It's not fair," she cried to our mother. "Olivia gets everything." It was a pattern I had learned to ignore, to smooth over. When she said she wanted to work in marketing at my company, I was thrilled to help her get an interview. I put in a good word. I thought it would be wonderful to have her close by. I never imagined I was personally escorting the Trojan horse through the gates of my own life. James had never met her in person, only seen her on brief video calls. At the annual company holiday party, they were formally introduced. I was trapped in a conversation with a senior VP, and from across the crowded, festive room, I saw them. He was laughing, that full-bodied laugh he reserved for when he was truly charmed. She touched his arm as she spoke, a casual, familiar gesture. A tiny, irrational alarm bell went off in my head, but I silenced it. "Don't be that girl," I told myself. "She's your sister. He's your fiancé." A week later, James started talking about a brilliant new girl in marketing. She's got this incredible energy, Liv, he gushed one night as I was massaging my tired feet. So many fresh ideas. She's a real firecracker. I, exhausted from a 12-hour day, just nodded and mumbled, "That's nice, honey." That mumbled response would later be twisted and used as proof that I didn't listen to him, that I wasn't engaged in his life. The gaslighting was so subtle, I didn't even see it happening. Then, the shift. He grew cold. The compliments stopped. And the brilliant new girl was also conspicuously absent from his stories. Then came the conversation. "I think we need a break." After he left that night, I sat in the silence, my mind a supercomputer connecting dots with horrifying speed. The company party. The firecracker in marketing. His sudden emotional distance. It couldn't be a coincidence. I needed proof. My mind flashed to something I'd done months ago. James was terrible with technology. I had set up an automatic cloud backup system for his work laptop, syncing everything to a secure server. A loving act of a supportive partner. Now, it was about to become my greatest weapon. My hands trembled as I typed in the credentials he'd given me long ago and forgotten. I felt like a trespasser in my own life. I navigated to the backup folder, my heart pounding in my ears. I found what I was looking for in a subfolder labeled Archives. Chat logs. Deleted chat logs from a personal messaging app he used on his laptop. But the cloud doesn't forget. I clicked open the file. The names at the top of the chat were James and Rebecca. My blood ran cold. The world tilted on its axis. I scrolled, my eyes scanning the words, but my brain refusing to process them. It was all there. A complete, sickening timeline of betrayal. It started with innocent work talk. Then flirting. Then it got worse. He was feeding her a carefully crafted story of a lonely man trapped in a dying relationship. "James, it's just hard, you know? Olivia is so wrapped up in her work. It's like she's not even here anymore. She's ambitious, which is great, but I feel like a piece of furniture. Rebecca, you deserve someone who sees you, James. Who appreciates how amazing you are." Then, the lines that shattered me. "James, talking to you is like a breath of fresh air. You're so alive. Not tired all the time like Olivia. Rebecca, are you sure things are over with her? I don't want to be a homewrecker. James, it's been over for a long time, Becca. We're just roommates now. She doesn't even see me. I feel so alone." The final message was a gut punch. They were making plans. A weekend trip to a boutique hotel upstate. The same weekend he had just asked me for a break. I leaned back from the screen, a wave of nausea so intense I thought I would pass out. I stumbled to the bathroom and retched, my body expelling a poison I hadn't known I was swallowing. I slid down the cool tile wall, my body shaking with silent, racking sobs. The betrayal was a physical pain, a crushing weight on my chest. It wasn't just a fiancé cheating. It was my sister. The little girl I taught to ride a bike. The one whose tears I'd wiped away after her first heartbreak. They had conspired against me, using my sacrifice as the very thing to condemn me. My hard work for their future was the proof of my neglect. I don't know how long I sat on that cold floor, but when I finally pushed myself up and looked at my reflection, pale, tear-streaked, hollowed out, something inside me shifted. The grief was a hot, molten core in my chest. But around it, something else was forming. Something hard and cold and sharp as a shard of glass. It was resolve. They thought I was a fragile doll. They thought I would crumble. They were about to find out I was made of steel. For the next 2 weeks, I was an actress worthy of an Oscar. On the outside, I was the grieving, confused fiancé. I let James see my red-rimmed eyes. I answered his occasional, guilt-ridden texts with non-committal replies. "How are you holding up?" he'd ask. "I'm getting by," I'd type back. He was so sure he was in control of the narrative. Inwardly, I was a general planning a war. I barely slept. I planned. My grief had crystallized into a single, burning purpose: I would not be erased. I would not be the quiet, heartbroken victim in their story. I would be the truth. I made my moves in silence. I packed my go-bag in secret, not just clothes, but my important documents, my passport, my grandmother's pearl necklace she left me in her inheritance, the hard drive with my artisan ledger plans, photo albums. I was systematically, surgically removing my life from the apartment we shared. Then, I scheduled a discreet video call with my boss, David. I told him I was dealing with a serious family matter that required me to relocate. "David," I said, my voice firm, "I need to know what my options are for a transfer. I'm thinking of the West Coast branch." David, ever the professional, didn't pry. He simply said, "Olivia, you're one of our top assets. Your performance ratings are exceptional. Wherever you want to go, we'll make it happen. Just tell me when." That call was a lifeline, a powerful reminder that my value was not, and had never been, tied to James. I even endured a phone call with my mother, who was oblivious. "James is such a good man, Olivia," she chirped. "He's so handsome and successful. You're so lucky." I just bit my tongue and said, "I know, Mom," the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The day of reckoning came when he texted me. "Can we talk tonight? I think we need to make a decision. For closure." "Of course," I replied, my fingers steady on the screen. "Come over after work." When he walked into the apartment, I was sitting on the couch, calm and composed. The air was still. He seemed relieved. He probably expected a tearful, messy confrontation. He launched into his prepared speech, a masterpiece of self-pity and gentle blame. "Liv, this is so hard for me," he began, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "You're an amazing woman, truly. But we've just grown apart. You've been so focused on your career, and I feel like I've lost you. I think it's for the best if we end this. I will always cherish what we had." He paused, waiting for me to dissolve into tears. I just looked at him, my expression unreadable. "Is that all?" He seemed taken aback. "Well, yes. I just want us to be able to move on, to be happy." "And are you happy, James?" I asked, my voice even. I want to be. It's easier to be happy when you have someone new lined up, isn't it?" The color started to drain from his face. The confident posture faltered. "What are you talking about?" "The new girl in marketing," I said, my voice dropping a little lower. "You've been spending a lot of time with her, haven't you?" He stammered, we're colleagues. Friends." The lie was weak, pathetic. "Really?" I leaned forward, my eyes locked on his. "So the weekend trip to the Cedar Creek and you have planned is a business trip?" "Because I checked their website. Their couple's package looks lovely." Panic flared in his eyes. He was cornered, and he knew it. "How did you?" "You're not a very good liar, James," I said. "And you're even worse at covering your tracks." I let that hang in the air for a moment. He opened his mouth, a desperate denial forming on his lips. But I cut him off. "You have feelings for her, don't you?" I pressed, my voice like ice. "Just say it. For once in your life, be honest." He finally broke. It came out in a rush of defiance. "Yes." "Okay?" "Yes. I have feelings for her. She gets me in a way you haven't for a long time. She's vibrant and fun. She's not exhausted and stressed all the time." He said it as if it was my fault, as if my exhaustion from working for our future was a personal failing. I held his gaze. Her name is Rebecca, isn't it? He froze, his mouth slightly agape, the name hanging between us like a ghost. How do you know her name? He whispered. This was the moment. The kill shot I had been holding in reserve. I let the silence stretch, watching the confusion and terror war on his face. Then, I delivered the line that would shatter his world. My voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but it landed like a physical blow. What you don't seem to know, James, or what you chose to ignore during your little workplace romance, is that Rebecca is my sister. The reaction was everything I expected and more. It was like watching a building get demolished in slow motion. The defiance, the arrogance, the self-pity, it all crumbled away, leaving behind a hollow-eyed, slack-jawed horror. His face went ashen. He stared at me, his mind visibly short-circuiting as it struggled to connect the pieces. He shook his head, a tiny, jerky movement. No. No, that's not possible. She never said, her last name is different. She uses our mother's maiden name, I said flatly. A fact you would have known if you had ever paid a shred of attention to anything I said about my family in the 2 years we were together. He sank onto the armchair opposite me, his body looking like it could no longer support its own weight. He looked small. Pathetic. He opened and closed his mouth like a fish, but no sound came out. But I wasn't finished. You accused me of being distant, I said, my voice gaining strength with every word. You said I wasn't invested. For the last 6 months, James, I have worked an extra 20 hours a week. I took on every miserable, soul-crushing project no one else wanted. I gave up a meeting with an investor for my own startup, a dream I've had for 10 years. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded bank statement. I tossed it on the coffee table. See this account? It has over $40,000 in it. See the deposits? Every 2 weeks, matching my overtime pay. That was the down payment for the house on Maple Street. Your dream house. I was $10,000 away. He flinched as if I'd struck him. I even bought this, I said, pulling out the small, velvet box and opening it. The simple, elegant wedding band inside gleamed under the lamplight. I was going to give it to you on our anniversary. I thought it would be romantic. I stood up, leaving the box on the table. You were right about one thing. I was distant. I was so busy building a future for a man who didn't exist, I didn't see the snake right in front of me. I walked to the hallway and picked up my go-bag. He finally found his voice, a choked whisper. Olivia, wait, please. I paused at the door but didn't turn around. Goodbye, James. You and my sister can have each other. You truly deserve each other. And with that, I walked out the door, into the cool night air, and never looked back. I drove to Maya's place that night, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, the adrenaline finally giving way to a vast, empty ache. I moved into her spare room and started the process of disentangling my life. The next day, I emailed David and accepted the transfer to the Seattle branch. Within a week, I was packing my life into boxes. I blocked James's number, his social media, everything. But the silence didn't last. He started calling from blocked numbers. Dozens of times a day. Then the texts started, a chaotic, terrifying barrage from apps that generated new numbers. They swung wildly from desperate apologies to angry accusations. I didn't know, Liv. I swear I didn't know. Please, you have to believe me. You set me up. You did this to ruin me. You've always been manipulative. Please, just talk to me. I love you. I can't live without you. I ignored them all. I moved. I started my new job, in a new city where no one knew my story. I felt like I could finally breathe. But the peace was short-lived. A few weeks in, I was at a coffee shop near my new apartment when I saw him. He was sitting at a corner table, watching me. My heart leaped into my throat. He approached me, a sad, pathetic smile on his face, claiming he was in town for a work thing and just had to look me up. It was a lie, and we both knew it. I turned and walked out without a word. It kept happening. He'd be at the park where I went for a run. He was coincidentally in the same aisle at the grocery store. It was systematic. He was stalking me. The freedom I thought I'd found was an illusion. I started to feel like a prisoner in my new life. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, my anxiety a constant, humming wire. I even had a consultation with a lawyer to understand my options for a restraining order. I confessed everything to Maya in a tearful phone call. She was furious. "That's it," she said, her voice grim. "He crossed a line." Without telling me, she posted a vague but pointed message on her social media about men who confuse harassment with romance and the importance of respecting the words no and goodbye. The post was shared widely among our mutual friends, and the narrative James had tried to control began to crumble. The final straw came from an unexpected source. I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. It was his mother, Patricia. Her voice was trembling with shame. She and his father, Harold, had found out everything. One of James's friends, terrified by his increasingly obsessive behavior, had called them. "Olivia," she said, her voice cracking. "We are so sorry. There are no words. We had no idea of the scope of it. James, he has a history of this. Unstable attachments. He did something similar with a girlfriend in college. We thought he was better. We're getting him professional help. Harold has told him that if he contacts you one more time, we will support your legal action." Hearing that validation from his parents was the key that finally unlocked my cage. It wasn't me. I wasn't overreacting. His behavior was a destructive pattern. Their apology was the closure he would never be capable of giving me. The calls stopped. The sightings ended. I threw myself into my work. The new position was challenging and rewarding. And with the cloud of James lifted, I took the money from my starting over fund and did something I should have done a year ago. I invested it in myself. I officially launched Artisan Ledger. It started small, just a few clients on the side, but it was mine. It was born from my skills, my passion. One evening, a thick envelope arrived. A handwritten letter. It was from Rebecca. It was 12 pages long, rambling and tear-stained. She didn't make excuses. She said she had been foolish, starstruck, and deeply insecure. She admitted she had always been jealous of me, and that James had exploited that jealousy perfectly. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just said she was sorry and that she was in therapy, trying to understand how she could betray the one person who had always been there for her. I didn't reply for a long time. I needed to heal. My father was my rock. "Family isn't just blood, Olivia," he told me. "It's trust. You take all the time you need." Slowly, I started to rebuild. I went to therapy myself, learning to set boundaries and to trust my own instincts again. My business grew. I landed a major client, then another. I had to hire my first employee. I was successful, not because of a man or for a man, but because of me. 6 months after receiving the letter, I called Rebecca. We met at a quiet park, halfway between our cities. It was awkward and painful. There were tears. But for the first time, we were truly honest with each other. "I might be able to forgive you one day, Rebecca," I told her, my voice clear. "But I will never forget what you did. If we're going to have a relationship again, it will be on my terms, built on honesty." It wasn't a magic fix. But it was a start. A year after I walked out of that apartment, I was standing on a stage, the spotlight warm on my face. I was a keynote speaker at a major tech conference, talking about financial empowerment for creatives. My company, Artisan Ledger, was a success, recently featured in a business magazine. Just before I went on, my old boss David, who was in attendance, squeezed my shoulder. "I always knew you had this in you, Olivia," he said, beaming. "You just needed to get out of your own way. Or rather, get someone else out of my way." As I finished my speech and the applause washed over me, my eyes scanned the crowd. And then I saw him. James. He was standing near the back, by himself, not with the main attendees. He looked different. Thinner. The arrogant swagger was gone, replaced by a quiet, haunted look. Our eyes met for a fleeting second across the crowded room. I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, no love. Just the vague recognition of a stranger, a ghost from a life that no longer belonged to me. I gave a final nod to the audience, a genuine, unburdened smile on my face, and walked off the stage. I didn't look back. I was walking toward my future, a future I had built not from the ashes of a betrayal, but from the strength I discovered within myself. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It was a difficult journey, but I'm stronger for it. My question for you all is, have you ever had to completely start over to find your true self? Let me know in the comments. And if my story resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more.